Be me, Paul. Pushing 30 at the time this all went down. SEO specialist at a small, lean agency. When I say small, I mean like 15 people total. We weren't a big name, but we were damn good at what we did. The kind of place that big corporations hire when their in-house team screws up, and they need someone to quietly fix the mess. Our office was nothing fancy, just desks, computers, and a coffee machine that sounded like it was on its last legs. But the work was solid, the pay was good, and there was zero corporate nonsense. The owner was an old-school guy who started the company in his garage. His management philosophy was simple: hire people who know what they're doing and then get out of their way. We had no mandatory fun days, no team-building exercises, no motivational posters on the walls. It was perfect. We just came in, did the work, got results for our clients, and went home. The core of the technical team was me and a guy named Dave. Dave was our lead developer, a true wizard. Looked like he survived exclusively on caffeine and code. He was a man of few words. You could ask him a complex technical question, and he'd just stare at his screen for a full minute, then type 3 lines of code that solved a problem the client had been fighting for months. He had no patience for meetings, small talk, or anything that wasn't directly related to getting the job done. The kind of guy who is completely unemployable in a normal corporate environment, but is worth his weight in gold in a results-driven one. We had a quiet, professional respect for each other. We didn't need to talk about our weekends. We just needed to know that the other guy would deliver, and he always did. We all did. That's why we were successful. Then one spring, the owner gathered us in the main room, announced he was retiring, sold the company, said he got a great offer and he wanted to spend more time with his grandkids. We were all happy for him, but a little nervous about the future. He assured us the new owners were a small investment firm and that they were appointing a new CEO to take the company to the next level. That was the first time I heard the name Jasmine. A week later, she arrived. She scheduled an all-hands meeting for her first day. We all gathered, and in walked this woman, probably about my age, dressed in that very specific, expensive but trying to look casual corporate style. She had a bright, fixed smile plastered on her face. The meeting started, and it was a whirlwind of buzzwords. She talked about her vision, about shifting paradigms, about fostering a new, more inclusive corporate culture. She used words like synergy, holistic, and growth mindset. I glanced over at Dave. He was staring at the ceiling, looking profoundly bored. I felt the same way. We just wanted to get back to work. Then she started talking about our current workflow, called it archaic and lacking in collaborative infrastructure, said we were too focused on cold, hard metrics and not enough on human-centric storytelling. This was for an SEO company. Our entire job is cold, hard metrics. I saw a few of the younger guys nodding along. One of them was Juan, a junior account manager. He was always trying a little too hard, seemed to see work as a social hierarchy to be climbed rather than a place to get things done. He was practically writing down every word she said, nodding like a bobblehead. The meeting ended with her saying she was excited to begin this journey with all of us. A deep sense of dread began to settle in my stomach. The first official email landed a few days later. It was from HR, but you could tell it was written by her. Subject: an important step towards a more inclusive workplace. The email announced a new mandatory policy. All employees were now required to include their personal pronouns in their email signatures and Slack profiles. We were also instructed to introduce ourselves with our names and pronouns at the start of every meeting, both internal and external. The email explained this was to create a safe and validating environment for everyone. Dave let out a sigh so loud it echoed through the quiet office. Juan, of course, updated his Slack profile within seconds. Juan, he, him, ally. He even posted a message in the general channel about how proud he was to work for such a progressive company. I just rolled my eyes and added he, him to my signature. It felt stupid, but it wasn't a hill I was willing to die on. I just wanted to do my work and collect my paycheck. That was the mistake, thinking it would stop there. It was just the beginning. The next thing was the weekly sensitivity workshops. Every Thursday afternoon, for 1 hour, the entire company had to log into a video call with an HR consultant. The topics were always the same: unconscious bias, microaggressions, privilege. The consultant was this woman who spoke in a soft, condescending tone, like she was explaining colors to a toddler. Most of us just tuned out. I'd have the meeting running on one monitor while I continued working on another. The workshops were pointless, but they were a symptom of the bigger problem. The focus of the company was shifting away from client results and towards internal policing. Jasmine started changing our hiring practices. Before, we hired based on a simple test. Can you do the job better than anyone else? Now, candidates were screened for cultural fit. Good technical skills were secondary to having the right answers to questions about social issues. We lost a couple of very promising developer candidates because they didn't seem enthusiastic enough about the company's new direction. The atmosphere in the office started to change. It used to be relaxed. People would joke around. Now, everything felt tense. People were afraid of saying the wrong thing. That fear became very real when Jasmine introduced the anonymous feedback portal. It was pitched as a way for employees to safely report concerns. In reality, it was a snitch box, and Juan became its most dedicated user. A couple of guys were talking by the coffee machine one morning, making fun of a bad movie they had seen. One of them used the word lame to describe the plot. The next day, he was called into a meeting with HR and Jasmine. He was given a formal warning for using ableist language. Someone had reported him through the portal. We all knew who it was. Juan started getting praise from Jasmine during company meetings. She would thank him for his courage and for being a guardian of our company values. He was given a new, meaningless title, Culture Ambassador. He still did his junior account manager job poorly, but now he spent most of his time monitoring Slack channels for any perceived infraction. The work started to suffer. With the new hires being chosen for ideology over competence, the overall skill level of the team dropped significantly. Dave and I were constantly having to pick up the slack. We were fixing sloppy work, redoing entire projects. Our biggest client, a major e-commerce brand, had been with us for years. Their account was complex. It required a deep understanding of technical SEO, something Dave and I had spent years managing. A new project manager was assigned to their account, a recent hire who was great at talking about brand synergy, but couldn't tell a 301 redirect from a 404 error. Their organic traffic, which we had painstakingly built over 5 years, started to dip for the first time. Dave and I brought this up in a team meeting. We laid out the data, showed the specific technical issues that were being ignored. Dave was blunt, as always. He said the new project manager didn't have the technical knowledge to handle the account, and it was putting the client at risk. Jasmine's smile tightened. She didn't address the technical points. Instead, she talked about Dave's tone, said his communication style was adversarial and not conducive to a collaborative environment. She suggested that maybe the problem wasn't the new manager's skills, but Dave's unwillingness to mentor and uplift new team members. Dave just stared at her, his face a mask of disbelief. He tried to explain that this wasn't about feelings, it was about numbers. The client was losing money because of these mistakes. She cut him off. We're building a different kind of company here, Dave. Maybe our definition of success is just different from yours. That meeting was a turning point. It was clear that facts didn't matter anymore. Results didn't matter. All that mattered was adherence to her ideology. About a month later, the big incident happened. We were on a critical video call with that same e-commerce client. The client's marketing director was on the call and he was not happy. The traffic decline had continued. He was demanding answers. Dave was in the middle of a deep technical explanation, walking him through server log files to pinpoint the issue. He was in his element, focused, trying to solve the problem. A new junior analyst, one of Jasmine's recent hires, was also on the call. In his rush to explain the complex issue, Dave referred to this analyst by name without first stating their pronouns. He wasn't being malicious. He was just a guy under pressure, trying to do his job and save a multi-million-dollar account. The analyst said nothing on the call, but an hour later, Dave was summoned to Jasmine's office. He was in there for almost an hour. When he came out, his face was grim. He walked straight to his desk, packed up his personal belongings in a small box, and walked out of the office without saying a word to anyone. We found out later he had been given a final written warning for creating a hostile work environment. He had told Jasmine and the HR manager that if they cared more about pronouns than their biggest client, then he was done. He quit on the spot. Jasmine sent a company-wide email that evening. It said that Dave had decided to pursue other opportunities, and that the company wished him well in his future endeavors. The email ended with a reminder about the importance of respecting our colleagues' identities and a link to the anonymous feedback portal. The message was clear: no one is indispensable. Toe the line or you're next. The next day there was a void in the office. It wasn't just an empty desk. It was a massive gaping hole in our company's technical capabilities. Dave was the foundation. He built and maintained all of our critical systems. We were in serious trouble. Jasmine didn't seem to notice. During the next all-hands meeting, she talked about Dave's departure as a positive thing. She said it was a chance to move away from the old gatekeeping culture of tech and bring in fresh perspectives. She announced they had already hired a replacement for Dave. The new lead developer was starting next week. I looked him up online. He had a very impressive profile, full of all the right buzzwords about diversity in tech and ethical coding. His actual work experience, however, was a couple of short-term internships and a personal blog. I knew, right then and there, that the company was doomed. It was no longer a question of if it would fail, but when. I went back to my desk after that meeting and quietly opened my resume file for the first time in years. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. This wasn't the company I had signed up for. My loyalty was to the work, not to an ideology. And the work was becoming impossible to do. The quiet exodus began. It wasn't just me. I could see it in the eyes of the other senior guys. The ones who, like me, had been there for years. We didn't talk about it openly. We didn't need to. There was a silent understanding. We saw more and more new faces in the office, all young, enthusiastic, and largely incompetent. They were great at talking in meetings. They knew all the right jargon. But when it came time to actually execute a complex SEO strategy or debug a critical site issue, they were lost. The burden fell on the few remaining veterans. We were working longer hours, not because we were passionate, but because we were trying to keep the ship from sinking. We were plugging holes in a dam that was about to burst. Clients started getting antsy. Deadlines were being missed. Reports were full of fluff and jargon instead of hard data. I was on a call with a long-term client, trying to explain why their rankings had plummeted. The real reason was that the new developer had accidentally implemented a no-index tag across their entire blog during a routine update. A rookie mistake that Dave would have caught in seconds. But I couldn't say that. So I had to spout the company line about algorithmic fluctuations and strategy realignment. I felt like a fraud. That night, I stayed late and applied to 3 different jobs. A week later, another one of the senior guys quietly put in his 2 weeks' notice. He was an analytics expert, one of the best in the business. His reason for leaving was family reasons. We all knew it was a lie. Jasmine organized a farewell party for him. It was a painfully awkward affair. She gave a speech about how we were all a family and how sad she was to see him go, but how excited she was for the new blood to step up. The guy just stood there with a forced smile, clearly counting the minutes until he could leave for good. Juan was in his element, of course. He was walking around telling everyone how this was a great opportunity to reimagine our analytics department. The rest of us just picked at the cheap vegetable platter and avoided eye contact. The day he left, I saw him in the parking lot. He was loading a box into his car. We didn't say much, just a nod. "Good luck," I said. He looked back at the office building, then at me. "You too," he said. "Don't be the last one to turn out the lights." His words stuck with me. I had 2 interviews scheduled for the following week. One was with a direct competitor. During the interview, the hiring manager asked me why I was looking to leave my current role. I was honest, but professional. I said the company's strategic focus had shifted, and it was no longer aligned with my career goals. He nodded slowly. "Let me guess," he said. "New management came in, started talking more about culture than about clients." I just looked at him. "We're hearing that a lot," he said. "Some good people are on the market right now." I got a job offer the next day, a 20% pay increase and a senior title. The company was known for being an old-school, no-nonsense place. They had a reputation for hiring the best and letting them work. It was exactly what I was looking for. I accepted the offer on the spot. Walking into the office to give my notice was one of the strangest feelings. It wasn't triumphant. It was just sad. I had liked my job. I had respected my colleagues. We had built something good, and I had to watch it get dismantled piece by piece for reasons that had nothing to do with business. I scheduled a meeting with Jasmine and the HR manager. I kept it short and professional. I told them I had received an offer I couldn't refuse, and that my last day would be in 2 weeks. Jasmine's smile didn't falter. She went into corporate PR mode, thanked me for my contributions, wished me the best, said the door was always open. There was no attempt to keep me, no counteroffer. I don't think she even understood what she was losing. To her, I wasn't a senior specialist with years of institutional knowledge. I was just a name on a spreadsheet, a cog that could be easily replaced with a newer, more compliant model. My last 2 weeks were a blur. I spent my time documenting my projects, trying to hand them off to junior employees who looked at my notes with blank incomprehension. It felt like writing a detailed instruction manual for a spaceship and handing it to someone who had never seen a car. On my last day, there was no party, no farewell speech. Most of the people I had worked with for years were already gone. I packed my desk, which didn't take long. Juan walked past as I was carrying my box. He gave me a smug little smirk, the kind of look that said, "Good riddance. We don't need your kind here anymore." I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. As I drove out of the parking lot for the last time, I didn't feel relief. I just felt an overwhelming sense of waste. But I also knew I had made the right decision. The lights were going out, and I was glad to be gone before the building went completely dark. My first day at the new job was like stepping into a different reality. The office was clean, quiet, and professional. My new boss, a guy who had been in the industry for 20 years, shook my hand, showed me to my desk, and gave me a simple directive. Here are your first 3 clients. Their goals are X, Y, and Z. All the files you need are on the server. Let me know if you need anything. And that was it. No orientation about the company's culture. No mandatory workshops. No emails about pronouns. It was just work. The meetings were short and to the point. They were about data, strategy, and results. People were judged on the quality of their work, nothing else. It felt like I could finally breathe again. I threw myself into the job. It was refreshing to work with competent people again. When I had a technical question, the developer I worked with gave me a clear, concise answer, not a lecture on my communication style. When I presented a report, my manager asked sharp, insightful questions about the data, not about how the presentation made him feel. A few weeks went by. I was settling in, starting to forget the slow-motion train wreck I had left behind. Then I got a message on LinkedIn. It was from one of the admin assistants at the old company, a nice woman who had always stayed out of the office politics. Her message was short. "Hey Paul, hope you're doing well. Do you know if your new company is hiring, asking for a friend?" That was a bad sign. Admin staff are usually the last to jump ship. I messaged her back, and we ended up having a brief phone call a couple of days later. She told me things had gone from bad to worse after I left. With the last of the senior technical staff gone, the company was in a state of constant crisis. The new hires were completely out of their depth. She said the office was a ghost town. The few remaining competent people were clearly looking for new jobs, and everyone else was just trying to look busy. The big e-commerce client, the one Dave had tried to save, had officially pulled their contract. It was a massive financial blow. Apparently, they lost millions. According to my contact, Jasmine held an emergency all-hands meeting after the news broke. She didn't take any responsibility. Instead, she went on a long rant about sabotage. She claimed that the old guard of former employees had intentionally broken things on their way out to make her look bad. She said their departure was proof of their toxic resistance to change and that the company was better off without them. She was trying to frame the biggest failure in the company's history as some kind of victory. It was delusional. The admin assistant told me she was updating her resume. She couldn't take the stress and the constant blame game anymore. I wished her luck and told her I'd keep an eye out for any openings. After that call, a morbid curiosity got the better of me. I went to Glassdoor and looked up the company's page. It was a bloodbath. The overall rating had plummeted to 1.5 stars. There was a flood of recent one-star reviews, all anonymous, but I could guess who wrote some of them. CEO is more interested in ideological purity than in running a business. Avoid at all costs. Management has no technical knowledge and treats skilled employees with suspicion. The place is a revolving door for anyone with talent. I was given a formal warning for using the word guys in a team chat. Meanwhile, our biggest client was on fire, and no one in leadership seemed to care. This place is a joke. Hostile work environment for men. If you are a man who just wants to do your job and go home, you will be treated like a problem that needs to be solved. Run, don't walk. The one that really hit home was this. They inherited a well-oiled machine and, in less than 6 months, managed to smash it to pieces with a hammer made of buzzwords. I read review after review, and it was all the same story. It was a strange feeling. Vindicating, yes, but also deeply sad. It was like watching a video of your childhood home burning down. You don't live there anymore, but you still hate to see it go. The months rolled on. I heard through the grapevine that the company was bleeding clients. They had to lay off 1/3 of their staff. The first ones to go were, predictably, the ones hired for cultural fit. Their lack of actual skills made them the easiest to cut. My new job was going great. I got a promotion. I was leading my own team. I was happy. I rarely thought about the old place anymore. Then, one Tuesday evening, I was clearing out my email inbox when a familiar name popped up. It was Jasmine. The subject line was reconnecting. My first instinct was to delete it without reading, but I couldn't resist. I had to know what she wanted. I opened the email. It was written in her signature style of cheerful, hollow corporate speak. "Hi, Paul. Hope this email finds you well. It's been a while, and I was just thinking about your valuable contributions during your time with us. We've been going through some exciting restructuring here, creating new opportunities for growth. I thought of you and your expertise in the field and wanted to reach out to see if you might be open to a conversation about a potential senior leadership role. I believe your experience could be invaluable as we navigate our next chapter." I read it 3 times. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. After her policies drove every single senior employee out the door. After she publicly, albeit indirectly, accused us of sabotage. After presiding over the complete collapse of the company's reputation and client base. She was now coming back to me, hat in hand, pretending like none of it had ever happened. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the disaster she had created. Just a breezy invitation to come back and fix the mess she had made. For a moment, I considered crafting a reply, a long, detailed email laying out exactly how and why she had failed. I could have torn her corporate speak apart, point by point. But then I realized something. The most powerful response was no response at all. She had no power over me anymore. She wasn't my boss. She was just a bad memory. Replying would mean engaging. It would mean I still cared, and I didn't. So I just stared at the email for a moment, then moved it to my trash folder and permanently deleted it. It felt good. Better than any angry email ever could. The next day I called Dave. We hadn't talked much since we both left, but we were on good terms. I told him about the email from Jasmine. He started laughing before I even finished the story. "Let me guess," he said. "She offered you a senior leadership opportunity?" "The very same," I said. "How did you know?" "Because she sent me the exact same email yesterday," he replied. We both had a good laugh about it. "So, what did you do?" I asked him. "Oh," I replied, he said. His voice was deadpan. "You did? What did you say?" "I told her I was flattered by the offer," Dave said, "and that I'd be happy to offer my services as an independent consultant to help them with their technical issues." "You're kidding," I said. "Nope, I sent her my standard consulting contract. $500 an hour, 40-hour minimum paid in advance." I was speechless for a second, then I just burst out laughing. It was the most Dave-like response imaginable, pragmatic, professional, and utterly brutal in its own way. "Did she reply?" I asked. "Of course not," he said. A couple of weeks later, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. I got another message on LinkedIn. This time, it was from Juan. His profile picture was now a professional headshot with a green banner that said, "Is open to work." His message was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive groveling. "Hey Paul, long time no see. Hope you're killing it at the new gig. Wild times over at the old place, huh? It really went downhill after all the good people like you left. Anyway, I'm exploring new opportunities myself now and was wondering if you might be able to provide a recommendation or pass my resume along. Would love to catch up sometime." He was one of the first people Jasmine laid off when the money started running out. His job as culture ambassador wasn't exactly essential when the company couldn't afford to pay its developers. He was the enforcer of the very system that had now discarded him. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I looked at his message. I thought about the smug look on his face on my last day. I thought about all the good people he had snitched on. I thought about the toxic environment he had helped create. Then I closed the message window without replying. I never heard from him again. Sometime in the fall, the final news came. The company officially went out of business. The investment firm that owned it decided to cut its losses and liquidate the assets. The website was taken down. The office was closed. It was all just gone. A successful, profitable company erased in less than a year. Not by a market crash or a new competitor or a technological shift, but by a single person with bad ideas and the power to enforce them. A few nights later, I met up with Dave for a drink. We sat at a quiet bar, the kind of place where you could actually have a conversation. We talked about our new jobs, about the industry, about anything other than the old company. But it was the elephant in the room. Finally, after a couple of beers, I brought it up. "Did you see they finally shut the whole thing down?" I asked. He nodded. "Saw it on a trade news site." He took a sip of his beer. "It's a shame," I said. "It used to be a good place to work." "It was," he agreed. "Before the circus came to town." We were quiet for a minute. Then, as I was scrolling through my phone, I saw something. It was a new post from Jasmine on LinkedIn. It was a long, self-pitying article she had written. The title was, "My Journey as a Female CEO in Tech, a Story of Resilience Against a Patriarchal Backlash." In the article, she painted herself as a visionary martyr, a brave innovator whose progressive ideas were met with a coordinated campaign of sabotage and resistance from men who were uncomfortable with strong female leadership. She never once mentioned the lost clients, the mass resignations, the terrible business decisions. In her version of the story, she hadn't failed. She had been failed by a world that wasn't ready for her genius. She had learned absolutely nothing. I showed the phone to Dave. He read the title, then let out a short, humorless laugh. He shook his head slowly, a faint smile on his face. He raised his glass. "To meritocracy," he said. I raised my glass to meet his. "To meritocracy," I replied. We clinked our glasses together and drank. We didn't fight her. We didn't argue. We didn't try to change her mind. We just left. We went somewhere our skills were valued, and in the end, that was all the response that was ever needed.